Hey, Rick, what did you eat last night?
I had a roasted mushroom flatbread pizza. It was really, really tasty. It was basically roasted mushrooms, shaved Brussels sprouts, roasted garlic. It had some preserved lemon, fried capers, Gruyere cheese. And then on top of all of that, they poured this heavy Parmesan cream.
Ooh.
So I was eating it. It was really tasty because I loved all of those flavors. But by the end, I could only eat half of it because of how rich it was. That cream on the top of it sent me over the edge. But it was really good.
All right. Yeah, that cream sounds delicious.
How about you? What'd you eat?
I do not condone this behavior, but it's possible that I snuck dinner into a movie theater.
Oh, no. We wouldn't want anyone getting in trouble because of something we recommended.
Exactly. Brad and I were going to see the filmed version of the West End production of King Lear.
Oh, fun.
With, oh my God, I can't think of his name, but really great actor. I can't think of his name. But we went to see that, and it was like at 6:30 or 7 or something, and there was just no, and it was going to be it was long. It was like 3 hours or something, so there was no option but to bring food in. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yes, of course. They were forcing you.
Exactly. So I made these delicious sandwiches with deli chicken and sliced cheese and bacon and arugula that I tossed with mayonnaise. And potato chips. I didn't put the chips in the sandwich, but I served them along with it. And they were on a nice wheat bread. It was really, really tasty.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love sneaking meals into movies. Nothing makes me happier.
Yeah. It was great. Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Kate.
And I'm Rick.
And this is our ongoing conversation about food, health, weight management, and our endeavor to be and stay healthy in a tasty world.
With love, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves and others.
Hey, Rick, do you have an Instant Pot?
I resent that you're asking me that question in public. Yes, I do, Kate.
How do you like it?
What'd you say?
How do you like it?
Well, I went through the cleaning process, and I thought that of the Instant Pot that they tell you to do, and I thought that worked really, really well. So I'm really pleased so far. I mean, I've only had it for like 6 months.
Yes.
I have a friend that's into Instant Pot, and I was in Italy on vacation, and it was Amazon Prime Day. And Kate texts me in Sicily, the bottom of the island, the bottom of the country, and says, you need to get an Instant Pot. They're on Prime. And then I also had some Amazon points. Yeah. And I think I paid like $33 for the Instant Pot.
Yes. So you have it. It's great.
I have it. I can't say I've used it to justify the counter space it's taking up.
No, you haven't even done an egg in it.
No, I haven't even done an egg in it. The easiest thing to do. It's so crazy. Like I haven't focused on it.
Yes. And you do so many grains.
Yes, I understand. Yes, you've gotten me to admit it. I'm guilty. Yes, totally. I have a problem.
Well, I don't think you're alone. I follow a lot of Instant Pot groups and stuff on Facebook and whatnot. And there's often people like, okay, I've had this for a year and I'm finally getting it out of the box or whatever. So I think it can be daunting to get started with. So I totally understand.
And there's a part of me that thinks I've just gotten good at cooking a lot of these things on my stovetop. Now I got to change it up, man. That's daunting and exhausting.
Really good point. Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not sure if I'm ready for a whole new process, but I will be. That's why I thought it might be good to ask you some questions. So, Kate, do you like your Instant Pot?
I'm quite fond of it, yes.
All right, so let me ask you, why an Instant Pot? Why? Why would anyone want an Instant Pot? Why would they want to use it? How does it relate to a greater sense of health and well-being and kindness and compassion in relation to how we consume food? And does it change how you eat?
Wow, that was 7 questions. So
because I don't want to talk for the rest of the show. I'm done.
Those are all your questions. You're just throwing them at me, and now I have to remember them in monologue. Okay. Well, I guess the first thing we should explain is what it actually is. It is a multi-cooker, and that means it's a pressure cooker and effectively a crock pot, a slow cooker, and a rice cooker, and you can make yogurt in it, and it can steam. And it can, I think, it can probably do your taxes if I only knew how to tell it. It's very fancy, and I don't even use a lot of the settings on it. But mostly it's an electric pressure cooker. That's what I use it for. And
now that's rich. You use it a lot. And I mean, you haven't used all the settings on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of them are variations on the same thing. You can still just pressure cook stuff. So mostly what I love about it is pressure cooking. And I have made yogurt a couple times in there as well. The Instant Pot is just a brand. And by the way, it is Instant Pot, not Instapot, as so many people say, just for the record. And it's a brand, and I got this brand because it's the brand my friend had, and she liked it. Star and Cookie had this one, and I saw it in action and was very impressed. And so I went with that one, and it was super popular. There might be better brands. So if you're looking for pressure cookers or multi-cookers, you could do some research. There might be a brand that's even better, but I love this one. Apparently, it doesn't work so well as a slow cooker. The Instant Pot's flaw is that it's a slow cooker, but I don't really care because I don't use that.
Okay, so pressure cooking is cooking things under a great deal of pressure, but it happens quicker, correct?
Exactly. So
that seems like one of the biggest advantages of it.
Yeah. And on the cooking shows, they use stovetop pressure cookers. And those have a bad rap of, in the past, they can explode and people have gotten injured. And it's very difficult for this kind of pressure cooker to do that. So it's much safer, and it's not something that anybody needs to be afraid of. And I think even stovetop ones nowadays are better, and you don't have to be afraid of them either. But I am. But the electric one, I feel really good about. It's got a sturdy lid.
When I heard you working with one, I was desperately worried. I've seen it go wrong for Bobby Flay, because all I was ever familiar with was the stovetop.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh no, Kate's going to blow stuff up.
Yes, exactly. I know. Kate could very well have blown stuff up, but it didn't happen.
Did you see what I stopped myself from saying there?
Yes, I did.
I always think whenever you load all your podcasts up, they always want to ask, is it clean?
Yes, exactly. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, there's something about, and I probably could have researched this, but I didn't. I can't remember exactly what the pressure does, but it actually changes the boiling temperature of water. There's no evaporation, so all of the flavor and all of the liquids are forced back into whatever you're cooking in there. And there's something about the pressure that makes things cook, as you say, much quicker. And if you're doing meat, it makes long, slow processes incredibly quick, and the tenderness is off the charts. It's even better than doing it in a way that takes 4 times as long, potentially.
Right. All right. So let's back up a bit. So the fact when you say all of the flavor gets back into whatever it is you're cooking. So would you be one that says the flavor you get from something in an Instant Pot is different from than an oven or stovetop?
Some things, yes. And some things, no. I think for big cuts of meat, like short ribs or a roast or something like that, yeah. I think my chicken stock is better. That one of the main things that I love about it is I always have homemade chicken stock in the freezer, which, in answer to your question of how it changes my cooking, everything I make is better because a lot of things I make have a little chicken stock in them. And so it really enhances a lot of things that I make because I always have homemade chicken stock. Now, I could have made it in the crock pot, and I have a beautiful stock pot for the stovetop that I could make chicken stock in, but I don't, is the point.
And that's a really great thing, because that's such a great beneficial thing to have in the freezer to use for your cooking. And it also speaks to something we just talked about on a recent podcast, which is this whole idea is, the genesis of what you're making. You know what's in your chicken broth, because so many chicken broths obviously are just chemicals.
Yeah, and even the ones
flavor
that are nowhere near as rich and flavorful as the ones that I make myself. Has a lot more collagen in it. And I make it the way I like it. And I also do beef bone broth as well. And you could do vegetable stock in there too. I just haven't, but there's recipes for it. So that's one way that I find it to be tremendously helpful. It's not the best for everything. Like, I made quinoa in it once, and I think you pressure cook it for 1 minute, literally, and even then it was overcooked to my taste.
Oh my gosh.
So quinoa's too delicate to do in
Wow,
there. But
interesting.
farro is really good in there. And I'm not a huge rice person, but I've done both white and brown basmati rice in there. And it is so good. I just put a little ghee and salt in when I cook it. And you could just eat it plain. And I know I do not feel that way about rice. I don't like it very much. But from there, I really do.
Okay. So one of the things I'm always hesitant about is when I've heard about this so-called Instant Pot, I'm always thinking that it's really good for cooking meats.
Yeah.
That I thought, why, as someone who doesn't eat a lot of any meat, want to bother with this? Because I think, my grains and my vegetables can cook just as easily on the stovetop.
Yeah.
So what do you say to that, Kate DeVore?
Yeah. Well, I considered that when I was forcing you to buy it as well. So it's you do cook seafood, and there are definitely seafood things that are really helpful in there.
Okay.
There are a lot of vegetarian dishes. I have this really great Instant Pot cookbook that's Indian food for the Instant Pot. And a lot of those recipes are vegetarian. I made a really great sag paneer, for example, in there. And a really great mulligatawny soup, which was happened to be a vegan version of that. So there actually are a lot of vegetarian recipes that are interesting that involve infusion of flavor in a deeper, richer way. So I find that the soups that I make in the Instant Pot, and I know you're a soup guy, like I could see you making a mushroom soup in there that would be amazing. I made the best broccoli soup ever in there. So I think the soups I make in there taste a little better than the ones I do on the stovetop. And it's certainly easier usually because much of it, you just throw things in and close it. You don't have to stir it. You don't have to worry about the temperature. It's hands off. Which is appealing.
That's a great question.
It's also good for grains, as we've discussed. It's really good for grains. And the egg thing, it does hard boiled. We call them boiled, but obviously it's steamed is what it's doing. But hard boiled and soft boiled eggs that 100% of the time peel effortlessly. And you can either have a runny yolk or a hard yolk, depending on how long you do it for. So it's really great for eggs. And I know that you're a fan of those too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jumping back to what you said about how sometimes you can just throw stuff in. So a lot of times when I pick up a recipe, I'm very excited about making it. It always starts off, a lot of them will start off with this section about begin by sauteing such and such. And is that sauteing happening in the actual Instant Pot before you pressure cook?
It has a saute function.
Okay, so I think that, and that's basically working like a regular pan, like it's just going to heat and saute stuff, right?
Correct.
So then I start to think, when I look at that and then I look at the recipe, I'm always like, I should just do this on the stove. What's the point?
Because it would be quicker and possibly tastier.
Okay.
And less labor intensive. If I make basically a broccoli soup is a great example because I've made broccoli soup on the stove and in the Instant Pot. And it's so much tastier in the Instant Pot and it feels a lot easier. And in that case, I do think everything just got thrown in. Some of them, it doesn't all start with sauteing of things. So sometimes you do just put stuff in. And even if it does, it still seems easier. There's less cleanup. Things don't splash. You don't have to worry about the right amount of liquid. You don't have to worry about things drying out or not. And you know what I mean? And it just feels easier.
Okay, so then another question I have for you is, it seems to me that everything cooked in the pressure cooker would always be, soft. That there might not be a lot of availability for crispness or textures when things come out of the Instant Pot. What is your opinion on that?
Well, in some ways that is absolutely true. Nothing is going to come out of there that's crisp.
Okay.
That is definitely true. It's also not true that everything is soft.
Okay.
So it does depend. But if you want something crisp, like, for example, I was just telling you that I just got the pan because it's a big thing to make lasagna in there. It's a popular recipe to make in there. And you still have to make the pasta sauce. The meat sauce separately. So I was looking at it with my mom like, well, how is this better? And there's a number of reasons it's better. One is the size is actually really convenient. And there was a number of things that I looked at that thought, well, I could just make a giant lasagna in the oven and it wouldn't be that much more work. And then if you want the cheese to be crispy or sort of browned, you stick it under the broiler at the end. One of the things that I'm really interested in making is carnitas, which is a pork dish where you slow cook this. That's the first thing I had in this that Star and Cookie made for me once. And it was so good. But then you put the carnitas on a sheet tray. and stick them under the broiler to crisp them up.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you want crisp, you're going to have to do an extra step. That is absolutely true. And I would never just cook, for example, broccoli in there that I was then going to just eat as broccoli. Right. I would never just do vegetables at all. It is not for everything, and that is definitely a thing that it is not for.
Okay.
Crisp
I mean,
veggies.
It seems like so much keeps coming back to flavor. What I keep hearing is that it amps up the flavor of everything you're cooking. And to me, that makes me think, well, that's super awesome because flavor is one of those things that really draws you to eat well and eat healthy, right? Because I often think, oh, God, if the flavor of anything can be any richer, it's such a good thing.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where sometimes I taste the stuff out of there, like soups in particular, and I'm like, how is this good in half an hour?
Right.
And I made short ribs for my mother recently. She was here for her birthday, and she was interested in playing with the Instant Pot because she doesn't have one, she doesn't want one, but she finds it fun. So I made her birthday, her at-home birthday dinner as opposed to her restaurant birthday dinner. I made beef short ribs in there with this Italian braising sauce, and they were fall off the bone tender, absolutely perfect and amazing. And I probably could have gotten the same result in the Dutch oven, in the oven, but it would have taken 6 hours instead of an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So in that case, I don't know that it's better. I would like to do a comparison, but they were amazing. And then we also made a flan in there.
Really?
So the flan, yeah. So you
that
still
sounds
have
pretty
to,
high end.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it was her birthday. And she likes a flan. We had a really good flan in Madrid, and so we were wondering if it compared. And it was not as good as the one in Madrid, mostly because you still have to make the caramel on the stovetop. So it is one of those that it's like, there's just no way around that. But the flan itself, the custardy, flan part, it steams in there in a way that is really conducive to that kind of cooking. And I would never try to mess with that in an oven.
Right.
But it's really self-contained and works really well. Apparently people make cheesecake in there a lot too because it's sort of foolproof. That's the other thing is that once you get your formula right, it's going to be consistent, which an oven isn't.
Right, totally. Okay. One of the things I think it would be really great for me with is beans, because right now that I buy all my beans hard, right? They're all natural. And then a lot of times I'll soak them the night before and then boil them for a little bit and use them for whatever I'm going to use them for. So what is the idea with beans in an Instant Pot?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't even think to mention those because it's huge.
That's why I'm here, Kate. We're trying to keep you people in the Instant Pot clouds floating so high above us. We're trying to keep you real.
That's right. That's right. So no, beans are amazing. And that is definitely one of the things that I thought you would use it for. Because I know you make your own hummus. And so if you pressure cook the chickpeas, your raw chickpeas, instead of soaking them and boiling them or whatever, I think it would be amazing. I have made wonderful things called refried beans, which they're not. They're just bean dishes in there. And some of them have like no fat whatsoever, other than the intrinsic fat of the beans. But I remember one of them was something like onion and cilantro and maybe one other thing and these beans and mashed up. And it was just so unbelievably tasty. So I made a bunch of bean dips and that kind of stuff in there.
Nice.
So yeah, any way of cook, it's a great thing for any preparation of beans. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether you're going to turn them into another dish or not. Really great chili. I've made really great chili in there, which you could do a veggie version of.
Right. Okay. What about herbs? Because, a lot of times in cooking, how we like to add herbs at the end so they don't get overcooked and they don't get a little, bitter?
Yeah.
Or anything green. And I know if you're throwing stuff in there, it cooks and pressure cooks for a long time. What's your opinion on that?
It depends on the dish, but a lot of times the recipe will have you pressure cook some part of it. And then once that's over, then you stir in other things at the end, like yogurt or fresh herbs. So sometimes you're stirring it in at the end. And sometimes you might even reduce the sauce down a little bit at the end, which I did with the short ribs, for example. They braised in this beautiful braising liquid in there, and then I let it simmer in the Instant Pot at the end while the short ribs were resting to reduce the sauce so that it was thicker.
And would that have been done on the saute function?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Totally. So no, mostly, although I have put cilantro in things in the Instant Pot, but it does taste different. It infuses it, but it doesn't taste fresh anymore for sure. So you'd have to put fresh ones in at the end.
I want to jump back to when you were talking about the lasagna. You were saying you got a pan because you're going to try this lasagna and said how they say it works really well.
Yeah.
Who are these they people that I feel
God, the
have
internet.
entered in? They're like the third person in our relationship sometimes. These people out there that apparently the wormhole is very deep, Kate, in the Instant Pot world.
Yeah.
Could you talk about these people and all the supposed chatter that's going on?
Yeah, I think the Instant Pot brand became so popular because it was just like lightning in a bottle. It was this weird fluke of creatively brilliant advertising that made them rise to the surface of all of the other multi-cookers that are out there, and it just became a thing.
It's a great name.
As a result, they did this weird like guerrilla grassroots marketing through, I want to say Amazon, I'm not exactly sure. But as a result, the cult-like following is strong, as we know, which is why we're doing a whole episode on it. Much like several years ago, our equivalent would have been our Vitamix.
Yeah.
Right? Which also has a cult-like following. And if you love it, you love it. And that's how I feel about the Instant Pot. And I really do use it all the time. But so the internet is just rife with...
rife is the right word.
websites and blogs and recipes for the Instant Pot. So if you were to Google vegetarian Instant Pot recipes, you would have a week's worth of reading.
Right.
To find some stuff. I mean, there really is so much stuff, and it would be helpful. You do have to have liquid in there, which I'll come back to in a second. But like, I think, so there's a Facebook Instant Pot group that has, I want to say like 1 million members or something insane. It's like the biggest group there is.
Wow,
so,
that's more followers than Hillary Clinton had during her campaign. That's fascinating and awesome.
So of course I have to snooze it. Otherwise it's all I see. So I go look at it when I want. And then it has a search function. So any questions you have, somebody on there has dealt with it. And so there's this whole community and YouTube videos. There's just tons of YouTube videos of people teaching you how to use it. So it's super helpful for that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's a thing called, I mentioned the liquid, which I want to mention. So there's another element called pot-in-pot cooking.
Thank God, because I read about the pot-in-pot. I'm like, what are you talking about? I bought a pot. Now I need another pot? Is that what people are telling me?
Exactly. So for something like lasagna, you don't make the lasagna directly in the Instant Pot container. You have to put it in a pan that then goes on a trivet, and there's water underneath it. So there has to be a certain amount of water to activate the pressure cooking. It's based on water. But if your dish isn't wet, like a lasagna isn't wet enough, then you have to put that in a separate pot and you keep it out of the water on a little stool, a little trivet thing.
Right.
And then there's water underneath it. That's how we did the flan, for example.
Because you can't cook a lasagna in liquid.
Exactly.
Right.
And the flan, I had to buy another separate little pan, a 6-inch round cake pan. And the
How do you have any storage left?
Rick, I can't even. I know, it's so nuts. My mother forced me to she bought it for me while she was here, the 7-inch springform pan, which is what you use for both the lasagna and cheesecake, which are popular. And I have
She is your enabler. That's all she is.
I know. And she bought the little parchment rounds for it and everything. So they have all kinds of things to make it easier. So that would sit on a trivet in water as well. All right. And I've also made oatmeal that way. I've made rice that way. And you can make, like, I made a butter chicken curry. There's a lot of Indian stuff you can make in there. And again, the spices and seasonings really do infuse it so nicely. The butter chicken is absolutely amazing, which you could make with tofu, for example. You make the sauce, the chicken thing, and then there's a trivet with long legs that sits in it, and then on top of that, you put the rice. So you can actually cook the chicken and the rice at the same time, which is amazing.
Sandra Lee from the Food Network used to have the show called Semi Homemade, and it would always be a combination of store-bought things and things from her pantry. Yeah. And she would always bring everything out, and she'd start her episode by saying, "This is the easiest thing in the world." And then she became known for knowing that her recipes were never easy whenever anyone sat down to do them. So I'm hearing easy and throw stuff in. I'm hearing this whole dynamic. And you cooked enough to know, Kate. Is it really that simple?
Some things yes, some things no. There's definitely recipes that I make where I literally throw everything in. Okay. So the chicken stock is a great example. If I were to make chicken stock on the stove, it's messy. You have to keep stirring it. It takes the whole day for it to simmer long enough to be good. In this case, you really do throw everything in, and then that's it.
Okay. Does what you cook in the Instant Pot, does it smell up your house? The way cooking on top of the stove does?
It can.
Okay.
Especially, once you open it. I mean, it can. Less steam is escaping during the cooking process, so a little bit less. And I still think if I were to take a comparable recipe and make it in the Instant Pot versus making it on the stove, for the most part, it's still easier in the Instant Pot.
Okay. And what's the cleanup like?
Well, that's part of the thing, is it's so easy. It's one pot and it cleans really easily.
Okay.
I've never even gotten anything stuck to it.
Interesting.
It could not be easier. That's
and it's
the other
something
thing.
you obviously pull out and clean?
Yeah, it's got they call it the liner. It's a metal sort of bucket that sits in the heating element.
There's no self-cleaning function.
There's no self-cleaning function.
There's no person on those lists you can call and just say, come clean my pot.
Well, I'm sure there is, but I have not investigated that.
All right. So what are the 3 tips you would give to people thinking about, or 3 pieces of advice you would give to people thinking about entering the Instant Pot world or the pressure cooker world?
Wow. That's interesting. Part of me,
I've thought of these questions long and hard, Kate DeVore.
I know. I might have I might have used a head up on that last one.
No, we're keeping it live. We want to keep you
That's
on
right.
your fingers,
It's true.
on
Well,
your toes.
The first question is this the right brand? Because, I'm a big fan of America's Test Kitchen, and they do product reviews, and they have rated this as not the best brand because its slow cooker function isn't great. So there might be better pressure cooker / multi cookers on the market. However, I would still buy this one because there are so many recipes written specifically for this one.
Okay. So it has legs already. When you dive in, you got a lot going for you. Yeah,
exactly. The 6-quart is sort of the average size. That's the one I would get if you're only getting one.
Is that the one I got?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I love that I don't even know. I love that you know. I don't know.
I have the one that I think is called the Duo or Deluxe or something. The knobs and buttons are slightly different than on the classic one, but the cooking functions are basically the same.
Okay.
So what was it? 3 tips? That's the question?
Yeah, 3 pieces of advice before people enter into this world.
Well, do some research online and look up some dishes that you think you'd like to try early on.
Okay.
The first things I did were eggs and stock because that appealed to me. If it were you, I would do grains and beans and a soup.
Right.
So look up some recipes that you want to try, and then you'll kind of get to know it. So that's one. I would not put anything in there that you want to feel fresh vegetables, things like that are not going to feel fresh and crisp afterwards. So It's not for everything. The things it does well, it does really, really well, but it's not a replacement for other stuff completely, I don't think.
And you've talked about the flan a little bit. Have you done other desserts in it?
I'm thinking. I don't think so. I don't make a lot of desserts. I only do those for occasions if I'm hosting people.
Okay.
So no, I don't think so. Oh, it's also really good for steel cut oats.
Okay.
I don't know how much quicker it is, but it's less messy. And again, you throw it in and you're done.
Right. Okay.
Keep it out on the counter so that you're more likely to use it instead of having to get up on a ladder.
That's gone real well for me.
Keep it somewhere.
It's just now melded into the furniture.
Yeah.
In the wall.
Yeah.
Every time I walk by it, I'm like, oh, right, I have an Instant Pot.
Exactly. It becomes part of the furniture so quickly. Also, maybe look on YouTube and look at a few videos of people using it to demystify it. Because I think, as soon as you start using it, then it gets a lot easier. So what are you going to make first, Rick?
Well, I'm definitely, not this week, but here's what I will commit to. Next week, I will commit to eggs.
Okay.
I'll start there. And I think I will start with the bean recipe because that actually sort of excites me.
I think those are really good ideas.
I think I need to do something like that I think I can manage as opposed to fish.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And grains.
Yeah.
I would also let you do some farro in there because my farro turns out so well in there. So for hard-boiled eggs, the foolproof recipe that people talk about in the community, in the Instant Pot community, yeah, right, cult, yeah, is they call it the 5-5-5 method. So you pressure cook them for 5 minutes on high. And you also, so the Instant Pot comes with a little trivet, a little metal thing. So you put a cup of water in the bottom and you put that metal trivet in and you rest the eggs on top of it. So they're not submerged in water, which means they're not really being boiled, they're being steamed.
Okay.
So 5-5-5 means you pressure cook them on high for 5. You do a 5-minute natural release of the pressure, which I'll explain in a second. And then you soak them in ice water for 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So that's the 5s. Because you always have to shock eggs in ice water. I don't always do that, and they're usually fine. But in this case, that's the foolproof method. It will 100% work. It will also work if you don't do that. But
okay. Go back to the release thing, because there's 2 types of releases, yeah?
Yes, exactly. They have a natural release and a quick release. And depending on the model of your Instant Pot, there's a different way to do it. My model has just a little button you push for the quick release, and I think the older one, the original one, has like a valve you have to move, and it's a little easier to burn your hand, I guess, on the steam is why they changed it.
Okay.
But yeah, so natural release means that the pressure will gradually leave the pot, and that could take anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, depending on how much is in there and how hot it was. And then a quick release is you press the button and you force it all to come out. So there's certain foods and things that they will recommend one of over the other.
Okay. I was going to say, so I imagine the slower release would just allow something to cook a little bit more, right? Or
and
to steep a little bit more.
That is part of it, yep. Also, there are certain things like oatmeal and beans. Beans get frothy when you cook them, and it's possible that if you do a quick release, then the gook from the water will clog the thing. You know what I mean? So you'll get particles in there, and it won't release properly. Okay. So that's another reason why people will do it quick versus slow.
Okay, great, awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, well, if you guys have any Instant Pot tips, please let us know. I'm dying to hear anything that you have hacked or any fun things you've done. And yogurt, that's another thing, Rick. You eat a lot of yogurt. I could see you making yogurt in there.
Yeah.
So the
I've heard you talk about
too.
the yogurt. That sounds really good.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So, and that's the other thing. The fancier model, you can do yogurt from a cold start, meaning you don't have to heat it up first to pasteurize it. And there's there's a difference, I guess, in the two models in how you make yogurt. So, can't remember which one you have actually. Does it look like mine?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. It does. So yeah, let us know. Send us an email. Contact us through our website. You won't believe what I ate.
Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and also remember, if you have any thoughts or questions or any tidbits, we also accept audio files and we'll play your questions and comments on the show. You can record those on your phone, just on your voice memo, and send them right to what's our email, Kate? You won't believe what I ate at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. And then finally, please rate and review our podcast and give us a good review and a 5-star rating because it helps other people to find us.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you. Happy Instant Potting.
I hope.